Welcome to another episode of Music Madness. We have Jared here from local band Winterhymn. Thank you for being here, Jared.
It's my pleasure, Mark. No problem.
Thank you very much. Recently did Winterfest, which was, sort of you guys were the headliners, and it was an all local event with the exception of one band. What was the process of how you guys put the bands together? Who did you have in mind to select, or were there any last minute picks, anything at all?
Well, I guess one thing we were trying to do was kind of bring in bands that we hadn't played with before, or at least hadn't played with in a while, and we kind of tried to make it a diverse lineup in that, it's not just Winterhymn and a bunch of core bands or Winterhymn and a bunch of thrash bands or anything. We were kind of wanting to bring in, not to say like the best of each of those, but like bring in like a showcasing of the different sort of things that the Cincinnati metal scene has to offer. We're friends with a few of the guys in the other bands, so some of them were bands that we'd always talked about playing with before, and this was like our final chance to do it. And then Dead Iron, the band from Cleveland, we knew from when we'd played up there with them at Peabody's, so we were kind of returning the favor. And
How do you feel about your guys' place in Cincinnati alone? I feel sort of like a lot more of the trends around here sort of revolves around metalcore and hardcore. You guys are a little bit different with the black metal influence and definitely the folk metal part. Was there any part of you guys that wanted to do something specifically sort of more unique to this area, or was there an influence from any other bands around or anything?
Well, we didn't, when we wanted to form a folk metal band, it wasn't like, hey, no one's formed a folk metal band before, so we'll have that going for us. Like, that wasn't a thought, but it was definitely something that has always been in our favor, in that, like, if you're a folk metal fan in the Cincinnati area, like, you know, you probably know Winterhymn. It's not like we're a core band and we're battling, like, you know, 400 other core bands or anything like that. So it definitely helps us out. But yeah, there's not really any other folk metal bands in the immediate area. There's not really a great deal of black metal bands in the immediate area, with the exception of, like, Sokorbanoth and a few others. Power metal's another influence, and there's not really a power metal scene around here, so we didn't really think about, when we were forming the band, we didn't think about that aspect as much. We just knew that, like, a folk metal band was something that we wanted to do because we were all fans of that genre, and so we just decided to do it.
So speaking of sort of like maybe what you've seen with other bands, what would you say is probably the most prominent influence that you would say you could speak for? You said you and Austin and the drummer of your band are kind of the core music writers. Is there anything that all three of you have very strongly in common, one band of influence or style or anything at all?
Well, we're all folk metal fans, so that's the kind of the thing that binds the entire group together. But we're really diverse as far as our other musical interests across the band. Like, not just the main songwriters, but everybody, because everyone does have an input on the songwriting process. And in some ways that really helps us, because, like, we're a folk metal band, but none of our biggest influences are other folk metal bands. So that's something that I really like about the band, and that helps us a lot, is that, you know, when we're writing a song, we're not saying, all right, well, we're going to write a Teresa song or a Fintroll song or something like that. Most of our bigger influences are black metal bands and power metal bands and traditional metal bands. So, yeah, at least as far as the main songwriters in the band, like, we're all fans of folk metal, and but, you know, like, I'm much more of a, you know, like, one of my favorite bands is Immortal, and one of Austin's favorite bands is Guar, and, you know, one of Ben's, the drummer's, favorite bands is Shadows Fall. So, like, those are all very different bands, but and those all kind of seep into our music in different ways, but, you know, we're all kind of united by the folk metal interest.
Are there any groups from about 2000 on, or even within just the last decade, that bands from the West Coast up east that are sort of doing the same folky power metal with the black metal influence at all? Any bands around?
Like other American folk metal specifically? Yeah, there's a pretty good deal of American folk or Viking metal bands. I mean, there's not many in the Cincinnati or even Ohio area. There's King's Blood from Columbus, which are like they're not folk metal, but like a very Viking metal style. There's the Conquering in Columbus. There's Adavant in Arizona. There's Northern Sword from somewhere else. There's actually a really big like Viking folk metal scene up in New York. There's bands like Last Legion and Winter Nights and Yonder Realm. And I'm probably leaving a bunch out that I'll wish that I hadn't. But there's a lot of really good American Viking folk, etc. bands. They're just very dispersed.
Winter is a major theme of black metal, and as well as some sort of folk metal and power metal bands. It's obviously a part of your band name in Winterhymn, as well as a couple of other bands. What do you guys have any unique take on a metaphor for what winter is at all, or is there any inspiration that why you wanted it specifically in your band name at all?
It's like a really good question. I guess that's what happens when a philosophy major does your interview. Well, we actually, as far as the reason we chose the name Winterhymn is because Austin and I were fans of a band called Wolf Chant, which is a European, like pagan black metal band, and they have a song called Winterhymn. So that's why we chose that name. We just thought it was a cool name. Obviously, when you're writing music about fantasy and specifically like the Viking barbarian sort of aspect of it, like winter is a big theme.
Holy It has been 8 long months since we have played our hometown, and boy have we missed you guys. This is a brand new song about goblins that attack in the middle of the night. This is Daggers in the Dark.
But no, I guess in a nutshell, it really helps communicate from the get-go. The name Winterhymn, it communicates like what our sound's all about, because winter, you know, there's a very desolate and harsh connotation. And then winter hymn, like the hymn is a much more uplifting sort of word.
Any last words? Is there anything that you want people to know? Any recent projects in the work? More songs? More tour dates? More anything at all?
Yeah, we're writing a lot for our next album, and that's not like there's not a date for that or anything yet, but we're really writing on it, and it sounds really good so far. We played a couple songs that we're working on at Winterfest, and we've got a few more. We're focusing more on writing right now. We've got a few more out-of-town shows in Columbus and Cleveland this month, and we are playing the Heathen Crusade Metal Fest with a bunch of really cool American and European folk Viking bands, and that's, I believe, in March of 2013. So keep an eye out for that.
Look out for it. Jared from Winterhymn, thank you very much, sir.